One-source multi-use is one of the marketing strategies aiming at ripple effects by applying one material to different genres. This strategy is becoming more and more popular with the digitalization of culture and industrial contents. This strategy works since barriers between genres of media products are collapsed and media transmission becomes easier. When one source is developed and distributed to multi-use product, the synergy effect would be significant in the market. Games multi-use is mainly like this: original game-based movie and famous movie recreated to game. Before going further into it, let's make a clear difference with the movie and game's narrative and structure. Movie narrative is one-way storytelling from speaker to audience. In contrast, games digital storytelling is multi-way interactive which speaker and audience talk to each other. Also, while the movie narrative has linear, complex structure with closed end, games digital storytelling has non-linear, open structure where the speaker and audience complete the story together in real time by their interaction. Let's take a close look at each media. First, the movie structure. In terms of content and form structure, movie's content is composed of story with 3-chapter configuration of plot, and movie's form consists of the language of the movie, such as lines, video, and sound, and the elements are visualized with directing, such as perspective, camera move, and editing. This structure is kind of traditional, but works. On the other hand, game is more complex media because they add interactivity in their narrative. They are a player. The content is composed of the game language like line, video, and audio. Its form is actually the significant part, the player's reception, programming, graphic design, and etc. It encompasses the player's real-time form of acceptance based on prior planning, directing, and interaction. In a word, the game is the typical digital storytelling model where the player completes the end of the story and the narrative and interaction are combined together. Now then, how these two different media with two different structures can be transferred to each other. Jes4Duo provides some transformation methods. Firstly, game based on movies gonna pick a few selective action sequences which are simulated in game sequences. Character description and development is either ignored or done with cutscenes because this part is rather hard to implement to game form. However, movie based on game, which is rather less common than the former, the game is no longer a game, but is rather presented as specific game sessions, played by specific characters with specific outcomes. In the movie, characters seem to become more developed, such as Lara Croft of Tomb Raider, who acquires much more of a past and personality in the movie Tomb Raider because they have to make it more immersive and dramatic. And now let's talk about the first type, game movie remediation. Like I mentioned, game is rather complex system which adds interaction in the linear narrative. So if the creators want to make the game-based movie, they have to be pretty selective, but not simply eliminating the original narrative. They develop the sequence in a dramatic way. They have to make it close-ended, linear, and generally understood. The reason for producing the game-based movie is that the content familiar to audience is more likely to be successful. The game itself has depth enough to be called complex cultural content. So if the producers move it to the screen properly, it will not be difficult to fail. Film is a typically high-risk, high-profit industry. It is an experiential material, which means they could know the value after consuming the video content. Unlike general goods, market demand is not certain, so it's rather easy to make a game from a already famous movie. But it's not directly connected to success because the number of people who is likely to enjoy both game and movie is quite limited. Even though the original movie is really popular worldwide, if they rely on the popularity of the original game and come out with a shabby product, the response of the market would be cold. Also, the dramatized scenario and visualization of movie usually falls short of the game mania's expectation. Accordingly, there were lots of failure of game movie remediation. Still, I have two relatively successful examples of game-based movies. The first one is Tomb Raider. Original game made by Square Enix since 1996, is one of the best-seller games which made billions of gamers and worldwide fans. The driving force of this game's fame was the main character Lara Croft. She was unprecedented tough and charming female character in game history. Even she was then recorded in Guinness Book as successful female game character in the world. In the movie Tomb Raider, a popular Hollywood actor, Angelina Jolie, took on the role and became a hot topic. Actually, the visualization of character through the casting was so successful that it affects right back to 3D modeling of post-series Lara Croft. In the original game, the background provides users with a variety of indirect experiences of exploring interesting spots in the world, such as Atlantis, ancient China, India, and the Arctic. The setup and story surrounding Lara has been reinforced with the details or rebooted as the season goes by. On the other hand, movie Tomb Raider keeps the setting of archaeologist and explorer Lara Croft, but sets the motivation for her adventure to father's disappearance. She visits Cambodia, Venice, and the polar region in order to reunite with his dead father. Jolie also took role of Lara in Tomb Raider Part 2, The Cradle of Life. This recreated narrative isn't all come from the original game series, but modifies some details such as setup, motivation, and mission. In order to say, it has created another series of video game Tomb Raider rather in non-interactive way. Movie audience can't react to the movie narrative nor intervene to it in real time. The participant of film is just passive spectator, whereas the participant of game is active player during the participation. Despite the movie Tomb Raider is #1 game movie in the world, the reputation is not prestigious as much. Totally misinterpreted Lara Croft in the movie made original game fans furious. In terms of her personal history and colleague, the movie seems to be building a different worldview from the original game. However, since Lara's basic characteristic is too focused on sexy girl image, in the movie she looks like she's acting like a also exaggerates her warrior property too much, not a curious adventurer. Fans didn't like those kind of distortion. And there's another example of game-based movie, Resident Evil series. Actually, it's not exactly the movie version of the game, but they just borrow the basic setup from the game and make a new narrative. It only follows an intro of the original game and the big concepts such as fight against zombies. It has succeeded in attracting attention with new settings such as how they approach Red Queen and reboot the computer, while movie Tomb Raider shared common details with the original game. Resident Evil series are totally different from the game, and as the final chapter released, the dependent world is completed. Instead, it shows the visualized actual image or homage to the original game. Due to the unique dramatizing strategy, the more the series sequel comes out, the more people watch the movie. So I'll probably say the same motive but different way of narrative development can be put in game-based movies. It can be said that the success of movie-based game is largely affected by the marketing, not the game content itself. If the movie is popular, then at least the game's gonna be successful. Therefore, in order to make successful game, it is important to attract the movie audience to the game user as much as possible. Since only the game contents cannot convince the box office, some game producers put an hour of movie scene video in the middle of the game in order to reduce the risk. In general, it can be seen that the gamification of video content is more varied than video imaging of game contents. This is because the number of people who enjoy video content is higher than that of games. Therefore, it is known that the awareness and popularity are quite high. Furthermore, due to this awareness and popularity, it is often reproduced as a game and exploits the existing popularity. So here's one of the most popular movie and both movie-based game, The Lord of the Rings. When The Lord of the Rings first came out, it was treated as a disaster of English literature, but now it has become the bestseller product in digital era. It is noted that this work has a narrative structure in which independent stories are connected in parallel in a large plot. This type of narrative structure is easy to be applied in movies, games, and other media formats. There are numerous games after the big hit of film trilogy, and most of them were first or third person perspective, action game, or RTS. But there are so many games that came out of the rain, so there are also a lot of poor games. But the games I gotta handle today is 3 games published by Electronic Arts and Vivendi Universal Games, which have the same title with trilogy movie series: The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. As we can see through, it is easier to graphically represent the original actual image than the contrary. Therefore, all of these examples show excellent synchronicity with the original film characters. This is because it is easy to let them know that this is a movie-based game, and it's an indicator that many original movie fans define the quality of the game. In the case of narrative, we can see through how the composition of the game is designed. They are all hack and slash games that emphasize combat from third-person perspective. The games received a generally positive response, with critics praising the recreation of sets and scenes from the films and the epic scope of some of the battles. Some, however, criticized the game for being too short and the combat overly repetitive. Interesting point of the settings in the game is set up with characters. The game reflects the movie characters' features, peculiarity, and characteristics. The game characters is skilled at all different types of combat. Aragorn is the strongest and most balanced character, Legolas is better at ranged combat, and Gilmy has a strong melee and ranged attacks. In addition, the narrative and the plot and background is the same as that of the movie. Sometimes the scenes in the movie are recurred, which reveals the intertextuality in the media mix. In that sense, Electronic Arts' game Harry Potter, based on the movie series, also uses the same strategy. Graphics are as realistic as possible, and they use almost the same narratives with the movie. Rather, they omit a lot of sequences in order to put the movie's linear and causal narrative into an unconstrained platform of game. Unlike movies, it is important to emphasize the realistic visualization and shift the movie to the game screen as effectively as possible. Till now, we have seen 2 kinds of media mix within game study, and here comes my conclusion. Even though the material is verified as commercial value, it doesn't promise the popularity of genre-transformed contents due to its success. This is especially evident in the case of game industry. And if you take a close look at successful OSMU strategy, it is fact that OSMU does reduce the risk of failure and turn it into various profit sources. But it has to be aware of some new rules. First, the initial integration strategy of designing, marketing, and advertising should be based on consistent and well-planned content. Second, it is necessary to develop a game that includes character development considering the characteristic of media, marketing strategy for multi-use, and developers' philosophy through the organic role sharing with manufacturer, agency, and developer. Third, it must nurture more developers through continuous investment in technology and education system to create new concept of games and share and accumulate information and technical parts of the company. Fourth, in order to create successful synergy effects, it is necessary to share schedule between producers, planners, and developers and release related products at appropriate times. Thank you for watching my video, and I was Zhang Ashen the Troll.